Elias, huh?
Bro, c listen, and I want all of my people from Canada, if they're out there, to hear me now. Y'all owe me an apology. All of Canada owes me and everyone who watched that card last night an apology because your countryman Elias Theodoro is the worst fighter I've ever seen. How has this person defeated 17 people in his MMA career is beyond me.
Hmm.
17-3. And mind you, he came in last night because he lost. Came in last night 17-2. How did he only ever lose 2 fights? He's terrible. His strikes are a half a mile an hour.
Uh, he's not as bad as John Fitch.
Listen, he's a worse fighter, but obviously John Fitch is more boring. But let me tell you something, all right? When it comes to watching MMA, here's one thing that I will not tolerate, okay? If I'm watching a fight, I cannot watch a fight if it involves somebody that I'm watching them fight and I feel like I could beat them in a fight.
Ooh.
Okay? And Elias Theodoro, I challenge you. I will fuck you up.
Oh,
you
man.
suck.
Things just got real.
Wait, are we live?
Okay. Yeah, we're live right now.
Never mind. You put on a hell of a performance, man. You're a tough guy, man. I respect Canada. I respect all of Canada and the kids playing hockey on your money.
Well, of course, you guys, you've tuned in to Fight Culture Podcast, episode 6. Of course, that is the Real Meds, Javier Medina right here. So at him at the Real Meds, if you want to talk to him, Theodore. Look, I think that let's start off with, you know what, let's go back. Let's start at the bottom. Let's start with the Cub Swanson fight because we both picked that fight. I picked Cub Swanson. You didn't, I believe, right?
I picked my boy Hurricane Shane from the Bronx.
That's right. I forgot. Hey, I didn't say Elias was. I didn't say anything negative on Elias. That was the Real Meds. So that's that Jay. So go after him. Anyways, what's up to Doom FPS in the chat? Yeah, Cub Swanson. Look, I picked him to win this fight just because I didn't know the other gentleman, but I picked wrong, man. And it happens, but I want to talk more about where does Cub Swanson go from here? Because to me, Cub Swanson he just looked terrible, man. Didn't have it.
Yeah. Honestly, this is a question I wanted to ask you because Cub Swanson for a long time, I thought that he would break through and eventually earn a title shot. And his last victory, if I'm not mistaken, was a decision over Artem Lobov. Okay.
Yeah.
Artem Lobov, who, if I'm not mistaken, has a 14-15 record in MMA, a losing record, was only ever in the UFC because of his connection with Conor McGregor.
But I would like to add, he is a bare knuckle champion, though.
Listen. He Paulie Malignaggi has something to say about that, okay? But hey, yeah, Cub, he's on a 4-fight losing streak. He hasn't won a fight since, I believe, 2016, 2017. It's been a tough stretch for him. And listen, he lost to Frankie Edgar. Very respectable. I'm not going to fault you for losing to Frankie Edgar. He lost to Renato Moicano. I'm not going to fault you for losing to that. And he lost to Brian Ortega, But here he lost to, all due respect, because that's my guy, Hurricane Shane Burgos, an unranked fighter.
Yeah.
And I picked him to win. Shove that in your face right quick, because I was right. You were wrong. Of course. Listen, the toughest fighters come from the Bronx, and Shane Burgos, I thought, would take it out. But listen, I didn't. It was a close fight, but at times Cub seemed gun shy, seemed a little hesitant, and he who hesitates is lost. And Shane Burgos capitalized on that and did a really good job. And I don't know, Cub looks slow. I'm worried about Cub, and honestly, he is not even on that elite gatekeeper status anymore.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he should be considering retiring.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's not in the fact that he lost 4 straight, but it's how he lost this last fight. He didn't look good, and Doom FPS said it in the chat. Yeah, the reach was a factor in the fight, but I mean, in the past we've seen a younger, more spry Cub get in there and face off against guys that were taller and had more reach. Last night just didn't seem to have it. And I don't know how good this guy is. This guy from the Bronx. I don't know how good he is.
He's very good. However, I don't think
but he's unranked. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he hasn't really been tested until now. This, of course, this is his biggest test to date. But again, like, I don't know. I think if Cub loses his next fight, then he ought to think about retirement, or the UFC might even cut him.
I mean, listen, bro, that's 4 in a row. He might get cut right now.
He might. And if he loses another one, if they allow him to stay and he loses one more, I think they will cut him.
Yeah.
UFC's got over 200 people on their roster. They don't, need.
Hey, Fonz, the number's actually creeping up to 600.
Oh.
Yeah. It's that far. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, listen, there's a lot worse fighters on the roster than Cub Swanson. Okay, so Cub Swanson could certainly keep his job.
Yeah, when I'm looking at their roster, I'm looking at like the top guys and the top 20 in each, and I'm thinking, okay, they got this division. I'm just looking at it that way, but 600 people, they don't really need another guy like Cub Swanson. Just losing fights. I mean,
hopefully he figures it out.
I don't know if he will. I think
I like him a lot, man. I don't want this to be the end of Cub Swanson.
I do too, but at the same time, he's one of the last of the old guards. A guy that's been around for it seems like forever. I mean, going back to the WEC days. It just sucks to see these guys that you've sort of, I don't want to say grown up with, but with the sport, it's kind of that way. You just kind of grow with them in the sport, and when you see these members of the old guard falling off, it's bittersweet. And he's one of them. And we'll get to another guy that's one of them, but he's on top of his game. We'll get to him in a minute.
Before we transition out of Cub Swanson, I just wanted to say this because this is something that I've observed and wanted to point out, is that when it comes to the younger weight classes, when it comes to weight classes in MMA in general, guys get older younger when it comes to the smaller weight classes. So when you're talking about 35, 45, and then also, a little bit at 55 as well, even though you could be a little bit older at 55 as well. When it comes to 35 and 45, once you're like 33, 34, 35, it's kind of done. You're donezo because you've lost that speed. And the guys that are that small are just so fast. And it's hard to keep up when you're creeping up on that age. It's not heavyweight. At heavyweight, you could be the best at 40, but that's not happening over there at 35 and 45.
Especially without the use of TRT or any kind of
absolutely. If we're talking about a clean sport, then these guys, and Cub is creeping up. He's almost 36 now, so yeah, man, he's it's not surprising to see him declining.
No, it's not, and that's the thing. If it comes down to you're just getting passed by the much faster, younger fighter, then so be it. You know what I'm saying? Take that easy road, take that retirement, and just be on your way, man. You fought great, your career. You had some ups, you had some downs, but you had a lot of ups there. I remember watching him in the WEC and just being blown away at times by his fighting. So really unexpected last night though against an unranked fighter.
He's a legend, but the thing is that Shane Burgos is from the Bronx, and it is what it is. So
here we go. All right, bro. So anybody from the Bronx, you're going to be behind. So I see where we're going.
Go on, buddy.
Okay, so next we got a fight by your man Elias,
my man. Okay,
your man versus Derek Brunson, and you picked Elias by knockout.
No, I did not.
I know.
I have my picks right here. I wrote them down.
Yeah, I had Brunson as well. So we both got the W there.
I had Brunson by first round TKO.
Yeah, I didn't have
and I really wish it was Brunson by first round TKO because he would have spared me the displeasure of watching an entire 15 minutes of Elias Theodorou fighting. Elias Theodorou is the worst. Listen, okay, there are worse fighters. Okay, CM Punk is worse. Of course, CM Punk is worse. But besides CM Punk, who's not a fighter, Elias Theodorou looks like the entirety, and I tweeted this out. Elias Theodorou looks like the only time he's ever trained was he took a women's self-defense course
my God.
one time.
Wow.
He took a women's self-defense course one time and then just signed a contract with the UFC. This guy fucking sucks.
Oh man, the disrespect.
And listen, and last week, you know, I was being conservative. I was like, you know what? I don't want to disrespect John Fitch. And you said, fuck that. I'm disrespecting John Fitch. Yeah. And then you proceeded to disrespect John Fitch. And you know what? I'm with you on that. Fuck that. I'm disrespecting Elias Theodorou. You suck. You should be cut from the UFC. And I'm glad you lost.
Before you go on too far with this rant, I just want to say Lunker in the chat says Elias striking is very technical.
You see the emojis obviously after
trolling.
His statement, right?
Yeah, obviously trolling. But the thing is, yeah, you're right. But women's self-defense classes, bro, that's disrespect. But I understand. I understand you. It's the way I feel about John Fitch. You know, the guy lays and prays on everybody in every fight he gets a chance to. If he takes you down, that's what's happening. So, but man, yeah, last night's fight, it was not looking good with Elias, and I kept
he turned his back and ran.
Bro, I was hoping and praying that Brunson would catch him and just knock him out, dude.
And you know what, Derek Brunson? Shame on you. Shame on you. You have committed a public disservice. You forced us to watch Elias Theodorou fight for 15 minutes. You should have knocked him out within the first 3, okay?
He let us down.
And the fact,
He let us down.
He let hell yeah, he let us down. Derek Brunson, you better knock somebody out soon, okay? Because I will never forgive you for this.
You know what? And I'm not going to even ask you where he goes from here because I don't really care where Elias goes.
No, Elias should
Brunson,
go.
This is not
somewhere else.
Yeah, for Brunson, this is not a feather in his cap. This is just like whatever, you know. And in fact, because you didn't knock him out, you know, you're going down a notch in my book, Brunson.
I agree.
Anyways, just kidding, but. Not really.
But we did both pick the fight correctly, so
we did, and I think that was a gimme pick. I really think that you and I knew that Brunson was going to win this fight regardless. Yeah. Let's move on though to the main event where we had Raging Al Iaquinta fight Donald the Cowboy Cerrone, and both of us, I believe, picked Raging Al.
We did.
We thought, now going into this was my thought process anyway, and you can go into yours, but I was thinking, you know, Donald's getting older. Raging Al, he lasted 5 rounds with Habib. He looked, he's just a strong fighter. He can take a hell of a punishment. He never gets knocked out. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, he's got this in the bag. Decision win. Mm-hmm. I'm going Al. And boy, were we wrong. Mm-hmm. Look, I want to hear about your thought process first on why you picked Al.
Well, I picked Al because just simply because we've seen Cowboy lose many times. Cowboy's got 11 losses on his record. I've seen him lose many times to fighters worse than Al. I've seen fighters worse than Al beat Donald Cerrone. You know, about a year ago or so, maybe a year and a half ago, Donald Cerrone fought, and nobody even remembers this because it happened in Singapore. It was exclusive to Fight Pass, so nobody even tuned in, right? But I tuned in because I'm a degenerate.
Yep. And
I saw it happen. Donald Cerrone lost a boring 5-round decision to Leon Edwards, the guy who got 3-piece and assaulted by Jorge Masvidal in Singapore. And, you know, I think Al Iaquinta is a better fighter than Leon Edwards. You know, he's lost to worse fighters than Al Iaquinta, right? But, you know, and also, I don't really think that Donald Cerrone has ever, even in his prime, has ever been that durable. So I thought that Al's power would take him out eventually. I thought he would go to the body a lot more. He didn't go to the body as I thought he would because, you know, watching Donald Cerrone's career, you know, if he ever gets really badly hurt, usually it's to the body.
And usually when he does get hit hard, he sort of backs off and he
gets scared. You see
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. It's like a deer in headlights. He gets that look to where
He
he'll
breaks.
just stand there and he won't do much of anything, and he'll just continue to get hit. We've seen Donald give us different and odd looks at times. Last night he gave us a look of, who is this guy? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I was really surprised with what he did last night. He put on a clinic against Al. I mean, seriously, just his kickboxing, the kicking to the legs was really nice. It put on some nice work there. His punches were on point. I just thought he really did a fantastic job. He did what he should have done, which is fight tall, and he fought smart. Al had nothing for him. In fact, he hit Al so many times with some good shots that would have taken anybody else out. There was a knee that hit him once that cracked him hard. Man, when it hit him, I mean, you heard it.
That
crack.
was an unbelievable knee.
And
it was timed perfectly.
Bro, perfect. And it would have put pretty much anybody else in the division out. And Raging Al, Mr. No Neck, he just doesn't get put out. There's something about this guy. He does not get knocked out. And then he also had the front kick to the face. Did not put Al out.
2 in a row.
Dude.
And you know what? That Al Iaquinta before this fight had never been knocked down in the UFC.
It's crazy.
Let alone finished by strikes.
So, I mean, last night we could have seen another man be put down by Donald Cerrone. He could have had another victory under his finish under his belt. But last night, I mean, dude.
Al's too tough. Another New Yorker, by the way.
Freaking tough guy. And I was texting you, and I'm like, Al's too small to fight against him. And I'm starting to think, is he too small for the division? But no, I just, you know, in hindsight, it's just he's fighting Cowboy, which fought so smart.
I didn't argue that with you last night when we texted, but I disagree that he's small for the division. I think he's a pretty ideal size. I think that Cowboy's a big lightweight. You know, especially when you consider his success at welter. But, you know, sometimes a guy just is a bad matchup. And Al Iaquinta, you know, obviously Cowboy could be some sort of kryptonite for him. You know, a very technical striker who's also longer and taller. You know, and Donald didn't look fragile last night. Was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. He didn't look fragile. He looked... So he got wobbled in the second round pretty badly. But, you know, he kept coming and he took control of the fight. And I think this is the birth of a meme persona, you know? We talked about it last night. We have TRT Vitor, Motivated BJ Penn, Full Camp Mendez.
Yeah.
But now Sea-Level Kane. Now we've got, you know, Dad Cerrone.
Yeah, we have Donald Dad Cerrone. That's
Dad Cerrone's 3-0.
He's 3-0. And let me run down some other things that he's done after last night. So Cowboy has 23 victories in the UFC.
What number does that rank?
He's the most. He has the most wins in UFC history. Number 1. So he's also he has 29 victories in all 3 combined: UFC, WEC, and Pride. So that's
number 1
in combined organization history. 17 victories in the UFC are second. It says here 17 victories in UFC lightweight competition are second in most divisional history, but behind Jim Miller. So he's second in there.
He's right behind him, though.
Yeah, in the lightweight division. He's also improved to 2-0 since he returned to the lightweight. He's got 20 knockdowns landed in UFC competitions, most in company history. 22 fight night bonuses, most in company history, both UFC and WEC combined.
What's that math? 22 times 50,000.
Oh man,
that's over $1 million.
And dude, and he spends it, man. I see him playing hard. He's out there buying all kinds of stuff, man.
He wants to have more kids too, man. Let's spend that money.
And he's also got 17 fight night bonuses for the UFC. Okay, that's just the UFC. So yeah, and
that's most all time, is it not?
Yes. And last night he, like as you said, he gave Iaquinta his first knockdown ever in his career.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to think, right? That
I've got another
Iaquinta has never been knocked down.
He's never been knocked down. I've got another stat for you, and he knocked him down twice. Here's another stat. Everybody loves a fighter who finishes fights. Most finishes, UFC history, all time, 16. Donald Cerrone.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is the best fighter to never win a title. And he's going on his run. This is it. Dad Cerrone. This is the run.
Yeah.
And you know what? Shout out to Donald Cerrone, because a lot of fighters have one run in them. Some fighters have two. Some fighters have three. Donald, I think, is like on his fourth or fifth. What a run.
Yeah, it's because, again, he's given us different looks. I mean, he's coming to the octagon where you knew, like, right from the start that he wasn't going to do well. And I don't know what it was. There was a time, it seemed, a few years back where there was maybe something mentally going on with him, where maybe something at home wasn't right. But now, dad, wife, everything's good. Man, look out, man. I really think that he can become champ at this rate. We'll see, man.
I mean, listen, Khabib is listen, but let's say, I don't know, miracle happens. Dustin Poirier defeats Khabib. I think Donald Cerrone's got a good chance at fighting and defeating Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, I think he has a better chance. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to say that he doesn't have a chance at all at Khabib, even though I would pick Khabib to win that fight.
I would pick Khabib. He's got a shot.
I think he's got a shot. You know why? Because number one, Donald is no slouch on his back.
He's got more submissions than he does KO victories.
That man fights from the bottom, and he has a mean triangle game, man.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put him out of the contention there against Khabib. I think he would do all right. Surely a lot better than Conor did. I'll tell you that much.
Let's also not forget Tony Ferguson's there, also waiting for his title shot as well.
Dude, who could forget about Tony? Right?
Lightweight is just so stacked with the best fighters are at 155. It's the best division in MMA.
How would you like to see Tony versus Cowboy? I think that would be phenomenal. I'd go with Tony in that fight, but I still think that
I'd go with Tony because I think Tony's just the best.
Yeah, I'd go with Tony as well. But damn, that would be a great fight.
But Donald can hang in there with anybody. Like, you don't just go in there and just beat the crap out of Cowboy. Like, you're gonna get out of there with some lumped up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to a relevant native in the chat. So yeah, man.
So I beat you last night because you went 0 for 3.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You picked every fight wrong. You picked every fight wrong.
No. I picked Brunson right. I picked Brunson. Yeah.
Okay. So, but I picked Hurricane Shane.
I'm 1 and 2. Yeah, you're 2 and 1.
Yeah, I went 2 and 1. I went 2 and 1. So,
well, yeah. Let's not talk about last week though, right?
I win again.
So I won last week. You won this week. It's all good. All right. So
4 and 1. Okay, just letting you know that.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about. Let's talk about some news. Okay, so we've heard some stuff about Brock Lesnar. Apparently, he's retiring, according to Dana White. So let's get into that. Like, what do you know about this?
Listen, man. Brock Lesnar's a bum. Brock Lesnar utilizes the UFC as a negotiating tool against the WWE just to get more money out of them, and tricking Vince McMahon into thinking that he's going to go back to fight. And you know what? He fooled everybody. There was nobody else in on this joke. It was his own, and even Daniel Cormier was fooled. Daniel Cormier really thought he was going to get a retirement fight against Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar is a douchebag. So, you know, him pulling a move like this does not surprise me. And you know what? Good riddance. Fuck him.
Yeah, I say the same thing. Good riddance. I really don't like him in MMA anyway, because once we found out he does not like to get punched in the face, he was a bum. He was a bum in the octagon.
Yeah, so
getting hit.
Daniel Cormier would have fucked him up anyway. So
as soon as he touched him, it would have been over.
So it is what it is. You know, I don't care. And you know what? Let's Before I was gonna mention Stipe, but before we hop onto that, let's finish up on Brock. You know what? I wish him well in retirement, man. It was fun, it was entertaining. But he never stood a chance against Cormier anyway. So
basically, you're saying you're a bum, but good luck with that
yeah,
retirement.
good luck with that. But also fuck you, because you essentially held this division hostage for a year, because from the moment that Daniel Cormier won, he got in the cage and he shoved him, and it made it seem like it was actually going to happen. And then Daniel Cormier actually defended his belt against Derek Lewis in Madison Square Garden before that. But even Brock Lesnar served out his suspension. He's been getting tested by USADA. He made it seem like he was actually going to come back, and he fooled us all. So you know what? I wish you well in retirement, but fuck you. Go fuck yourself.
What else you got?
I wanted to mention that since this man has retired, we're getting a rematch. We're getting Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier 2. And it's happening in August. It's happening at UFC 241, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 231? No, 241.
Much better fight anyway. That's much better than getting Brock's.
Yeah, UFC 241, August 17th. So we have this matchup. We have Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. What do you think about the matchup? What do you think about the fight? Yeah, what's up?
Well, this is their second fight. I think it's going to be a great fight. I, of course, think that Miocic actually deserves to fight him again. And I wouldn't sleep on Miocic if I was Daniel. I think he has a real good shot coming back and beating Daniel. I'd still go with the champ, though. I'd still go with the champ on this if I had to choose.
Yeah. I would have to agree. I think Daniel Cormier, he could be, if it weren't for the fact that John Jones exists, Daniel Cormier could be the best fighter of all time.
Ooh, Lunker said, man, your name, man, Lunker. As long as Cormier don't poke Stipe's eye
hang
out
on, because I was getting to that. I was getting to that. Okay. So yeah, I think Daniel Cormier, if it wasn't for the existence of John Jones, could be the greatest of all time. But obviously, John Jones is a thing, and he is better than Daniel Cormier in every way, and I think he's the greatest. So it is what it is. But yeah, going back to that, I would pick Daniel Cormier, but at the same time, I do believe he only won the first fight because he poked Stipe in the eye more than once. And the punch that snuck in and knocked Stipe on his butt, which allowed him to get the TKO finish, came directly after an eye poke, and he sent that punch in the direction of the eye that he had just poked. So yeah, I do believe
isn't that a dirty?
Say it again.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic though, because you just mentioned John Jones. I guess
John Jones poked people in the eye.
Yeah. He learned that from John Jones. So
yeah, man, listen, Daniel Cormier likes to talk a lot of crap about John Jones cheating, but he's the one who missed weight and wasn't stripped of the title. It could because he leaned on a towel that he cheated.
Oh, that was bad.
He absolutely cheated, and he did it blatantly in front of everyone. And he also poked Stipe in the eye. So I think, like Lunker said in the chat, I appreciate you showing up and supporting us, buddy. That if we keep eye pokes out of it, Stipe stands a hell of a good chance against Daniel Cormier. So I expect it to be a much better fight than the first matchup.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's going to be no eye gouging or poking. I hope it's just clean and we get a good fight. But I still think Daniel Cormier is a great fighter. So put some respect on his name, man.
No, he's a hell of a competitor. And you know what? I feel bad for Cormier, because if he had fought Brock Lesnar, it would have obviously sold more on pay-per-view, which would have made his paycheck fatter. Now he has to fight Stipe Miocic, and
do you remember
tougher fight and also for less money. Hang on, let me just finish.
Go ahead.
And also, you know what? I hope Stipe wins, just because I don't want this to be Daniel Cormier's last fight. Hopefully Stipe can win, and then they can do a rubber match, and Daniel Cormier can come back and fight Stipe for a third time before he retires. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Do you think that this will be his last fight if he does win?
If he wins, yes. If he wins, yes, because he has nothing else to prove, and honestly, even though there is a possibility of a John Jones fight
Yeah,
out there,
I think that'll
there's
happen.
a possibility of a John Jones fight out there. Um, I, and I don't want to ever call a fighter scared because I don't think fighters are scared of anything. But I think he knows that he would lose to John Jones if they fought a third time.
Well,
And
that's what I
he's
think.
afraid, but just he would rather not deal with that. So he'd rather retire than fight John Jones again.
Yeah, I think that he's basically. I think that he would fight him again before he retires, and maybe John Jones would go up to heavyweight and fight him.
That would be awesome.
That's
That'd
what
be
I'd
great.
like to see. And if he does that, then John could get dual belts here. And
Yeah, but you know what, bro? Like, I don't think it's gonna line up because I don't think either guy wants it, right? But let's suppose, John Jones says yes, I'll move up to heavyweight and I'll fight Daniel Cormier. I think if the UFC offers Cormier this fight after this Stipe fight, or even right now, I don't think he takes the fight. I think he declines. I don't think he wants, because I do think that he wants out because he's about 40 years old and it's about time to get out of here, I don't think he wants to go out on a loss. And John Jones, even if he's confident that he can beat him, he knows that even if it's 50-50, John Jones could get out of here with this win. And you don't want to leave you don't want to leave the octagon and never come back on a loss. So, yeah, this John Jones thing is not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Do you remember, I believe this was in Strikeforce when Cormier picked up Josh Barnett and dumped him? It was crazy looking because Josh Barnett's a huge guy
and a hell of a wrestler.
And here's Cormier just picks him up and dumps him. It was a thing of beauty, man.
That's when Daniel Cormier really made a name for himself, winning that Grand Prix.
Yep. Strikeforce, man. That was fun back in the day. Okay, so you think that's what's going to go on with Cormier? You got any other news before we get into
I got one more because we talked about this before the show. This is relating to USADA. And you know how I feel about USADA. So last week we discussed 4 fighters being suspended for the very same thing. And only being suspended for 6 months because it was determined that they were found that they were not culpable in them having the substance in their system. So there's a fighter, her name is Amanda Ribas. She has not made her UFC debut yet, but she is signed to the organization. She hasn't fought yet because basically as soon as she signed, she got slapped with a 2-year suspension from USADA for the very same substance that these people were just let off for 6 months for. USADA has terminated her suspension. It's only about 2 months early, so the damage has been done. She's already lost 2 years of her career. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because let me
run this back. She lost 2 years
of her career, yes,
due to the same drug somebody else, some other took for 6 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said that they weren't to blame for it. That's why they only did.
Yes. They were found they were found culpable only because the reason they get suspended for 6 months is because they get found culpable for being quote unquote negligent. Okay. But they were found to be not have taken this purposely.
So are they trying to say it was dick pills or
contaminated supplements? They were able to prove because the way that USADA does it is that they take samples from the fighter and then they also go and purchase the supplement independently at the stores that these athletes claim that they purchased them from. They test them.
In this sport, like the only thing you can really do, it seems, is just not do anything, not take anything.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of fighters who are living that way, who they're not taking even multivitamins.
Yeah, which sucks, right? Because a lot of these companies, and I've heard that a lot of these, especially the more generic branded
Mhm.
supplements and stuff. They're all made in the same factories where they make the stuff that is not legal for
Exactly.
to
Mhm.
use. And it's all made in the same, containers and stuff. And sometimes just a little trace amount can get
Yeah.
into that, what you're taking and really bust you.
Yeah.
So I mean, that sucks, that really sucks. And I definitely get your point with USADA, man. I mean, that's not cool giving some people 2 years, other people 6 months,
Yeah.
and
And some fighters who are 100% innocent. And again, innocent, guilty, it is what it is. They don't care if the drug is in your system, they're going to suspend you, which is why these guys got 6 month suspensions.
or you can
Um,
fight with picograms.
yeah, or exactly. And you know what? I do think that rules should be enforced. We discussed this when I went on my USADA rant. There's rules, you got to enforce them. And if you're going to break the rules, you know what? Do a better job at hiding the fact that you're breaking them.
Hmm.
But this is a bit of a slippery slope, and you can be caught by accident, something that you don't want to do. And I just think 2 years, and here's where what I'm talking about. Here's my stance. 2 years is very, very harsh. You know, um, I say the maximum a fighter should be suspended is 1 year.
It depends, I think, on what they.
On your first infraction. On
Oh,
your
yeah,
first infraction, 1 year. Your first infraction should not be 2 years, man. That should be maybe your second infraction. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway,
I go on with that.
but yeah, USADA, screw USADA. They owe Tom Lawler an apology. They owe this girl Amanda Ribas an apology because they made her lose 2 years of her career when it could have just been 6 months. So we an athlete only has a very limited amount of time to capitalize on their spending potential, and losing 2 years of your prime is a hell of a hit, especially when you know that you've done nothing wrong. So screw USADA. Let's get into UFC 237 because that's a hell of a card.
Let's do it.
So there's a fight on the prelims because we're not going to pick any fights on the prelims because the prelims are pretty kind of trash. And that's something that we wanted to highlight, right? Because these UFC cards lately have been pretty mediocre, right?
They are. They have been. It seems like there might be, 1, 2, if you're lucky, maybe 3 fights that are decent. And this is including the prelims as well. And that's just not solid, if you're only getting 2, 3 fights every week. I want to see more, damn it. I'm selfish. So I want to see better fights, better matchmaking. It seems like a lot, there is a lot of debuts recently. I don't know if you've noticed that. There's a lot of UFC debuts going on.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. I mean, you need new blood, but at the same time, some of them just aren't bringing the passion.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the UFC right now, in terms of financials, they're doing better than ever. They're getting a crap load of money from ESPN.
Oh,
and,
can I rant a bit on this ESPN deal? I don't like it at all, dude.
Hang on, because I wanted to say something about that.
Go ahead.
And let's rant about it together because I think this ESPN deal is bad for the sport, and here's why.
Yep.
Because you would think, right? It kind of makes sense to think that, a business that you like getting an infusing of cash would make the product better, right? Because then you get more money to spend on the product to improve the product. No, but this is not what's happening. ESPN is giving the UFC an assload of money, and the UFC is just pocketing this money and not only shortchanging us, the fans, but shortchanging the fighters. We discussed it recently when Max Holloway made $350,000 to fight Dustin Poirier. That was a robbery. And these guys are making money hand over fist now, and the product is not improving. What's your take, bro?
The biggest takeaway I have from this whole deal is that, as a fan of the sport, I want more eyes on the sport. I've said that forever. And the fact is, with this ESPN deal, it takes away some of those eyes. And matter of fact, some people have been led to illegal streams to watch these fights because
Mm-hmm.
the deal is so convoluted. You have to actually not only have an ESPN Plus account, which costs you $5 a month, like $4.99 or something, but you also need a cable or satellite subscriber. You need to be subscribed to these services. If you don't have cable, don't have satellite, you can't watch ESPN Plus. It's not like an app you can download and just watch.
No, you can't. You can watch ESPN Plus, but the thing is that some of the fights are on some of the fights are on ESPN2, and some of the fights are on ESPN regular. So if you only have ESPN Plus, those are the only fights you can watch because the others are only on ESPN the channel. And it's too convoluted. It's the same thing that it was before.
Because see, this is what my buddy told me. My buddy said when he went to go sign up for ESPN Plus, it said, "Okay, who's your cable or satellite provider?" And that's where he got stuck. So he had to go and get a subscription through he used like Hulu Live or something, and he did a trial there just to watch the fights. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what do you have to jump through hoops to watch?
I think he may have taken a wrong turn, right? Because I have it set up on ESPN. It's basically two things that they have, right? They have ESPN Plus, which includes basically more or less half of the UFC's content. And then the rest of the stuff is on ESPN proper, aka the actual TV channel. Okay. And if you have a TV provider like Dish Network or Optimum or something like that, then you can sign into that and also on top of ESPN Plus watch the stuff that's on ESPN proper. Like right now, I'm watching an ESPN game that's a basketball game that's on ABC. But because I have that set up.
But do you see how confusing it could be?
But that's exactly the thing that's a major problem because it's very confusing for the general fan. Like they've really created a lot of hoops for fans to jump through to get this content. It's like a lot easier to stream it illegally.
You can take away having to have a subscription to any kind of cable or satellite, but at the end of the day, you need that subscription to ESPN Plus. And the facts are, if you have ESPN, if you want to just watch the pay-per-view and spend your $60 there, you can't just do that. You have to sign into ESPN Plus and buy a subscription there. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, there's a paywall to the paywall.
It's ridiculous. And look, I'm always going to be that fan, that degenerate. Both of us are. We're always going to watch these fights, but at the end of the day, I
find a way to watch everything I want.
Yeah, but the thing is, at the end of the day, you want the company to make money because you want to see these fighters benefit. But they're not benefiting.
They're not benefiting, and the fighters need an association. They need, just like the NBA has a players association, just like they have a union. And the same goes for every sport, the NHL, the NFL. The fighters need to unionize. And the thing is that because of the nature of the sport of fighting, where there's so many rivalries and there's just so many people that are just like not willing to work with each other because of personal vendettas, it's very difficult to make a fighters union. It's very difficult. The fighters have a very difficult time putting their pride aside and making it happen. Yeah. And they're going to keep, until they fight for their rights, bro, they're going to continue to get fucked because the UFC is making $300 million a year just mind you, hang on, because I'm not done. Just off of the programming, they're making $300 million, just the regular programming, and off of the pay-per-views, the UFC is giving them $200 million a year. So that's $500 million a year.
Oh, and you can't even get you're not even factoring in the deals that they have with like Monster Energy, all these other promotional,
all of these sponsors that they appear on the canvas. They're making money hand over fist, and the fighters are starving.
And this is why I was so mad when they did the Reebok deal, because without Reebok, these fighters, and I've said it before on the show, some of them were making six figures with just their sponsorships alone. And because they had to fight at, 4-4, 20-20, just ridiculous amounts to walk into that cage and get their faces beat in. But hey, they had that sponsorship deal that gave them their money. They gave them their livelihood. Some of them had to go back to work after they took away the sponsorships. That's how bad it was. Like their fighting was not their full-time job anymore. And yet they were after their jobs, they'd have to go to the gym, train, and It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there was actually a fighter who fought on this weekend's card who works as a waitress still. Sarah Morris. She fought Macy Chiasson
Mhm.
on the prelims. She works as a waitress, and that's embarrassing. She's on television. She's on the UFC roster. The fact that there's people out there who like Stipe Miocic, who's a champion, is a firefighter on the side. That's embarrassing.
They risk their bodies in this, sport, and their minds, their brains. Like, give them the money, damn it! Like, I love this sport. I love watching it, just like the rest of you here. That's why you're here. But I hate the fact that when I hear the numbers and when I hear what they're getting, and then when I hear the gate numbers and hear what the UFC themselves have made, it pisses me off. It's like, give back to these fighters.
And you know what, Fonz? That's a lot of the reason why USADA bothers me a lot, because when a fighter gets suspended, man, a fighter makes the bulk of their money fighting. And even when they fight, they have to pay their managers, they have to pay their trainers, they have to pay taxes, they have to pay all these things. And ultimately, a fighter gets out of the cage with half of what you read that they made. Whatever you read that they made, they get half that, to feed their families with. And for a fighter to be robbed of 2 years of their prime, I'm not with that. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. But let's pivot forward and move to the home stretch of the show, and let's pick UFC 237, which is coming up in Brazil. And we've got the main event is Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade, which is a hell of a main event. I find it odd that a champion is defending their throne on enemy territory, but whatever. Let's start from the bottom up. There's only 4 fights that we care about this event that we're gonna pick. So let's start with the least important, working up to the main event. So let's start with BJ Penn versus Clay Guida. It's actually a lightweight bout. BJ Penn has recently been fighting at featherweight, but he's fighting at lightweight here against Clay Guida. What do you think, bro?
Okay, first of all, this is truly the last of the old guard. I mean, we're going grandfather status here. First of all, I'd like to say, Meds, why are we getting this fight? Number one, obviously because they're hurting because they didn't make enough money when they were in their prime because the UFC wouldn't pay them. Okay, so end of that rant. But anyway, that's why we're seeing this essentially. BJ and Clay need the money. This is the type of fight you would normally see on, say, Bellator. But no, we have it here on this UFC card. Thank goodness it's in the prelims because it shouldn't be on the main card. And if I had to pick one here, I'd go with Clay Guida just because of how badly BJ has performed the last few times I've seen him.
Yeah, I basically gotta agree with you. What do you have him by? You think he's gonna finish BJ?
I think it's gonna be a decision win, Clay Guida.
You know what? I actually I hate to make it boring and agree with you, but I do agree because I don't really trust Clay Guida to finish anybody, even if it's an old battered BJ Penn. So I've got Clay Guida just outpointing BJ Penn in a terrible fight. And hopefully retiring afterwards.
Yeah, dude. And Lunkin in the chat said it hurts to watch BJ nowadays. It hurts me. BJ is I was going to say he is one of my all-time favorite fighters. He's a legend of the sport. I loved watching BJ back in the day. He was a killer. He was an animal, licking the blood off his gloves after a victory win. He was amazing to watch. And then to see where he's fallen. And a lot of these older guys, just time has passed them by. These new fighters, up and coming, they've started when they were like 6 years old watching the UFC, and now that they're 18, 19 years old, they're just beasts. And it's sad. It sucks, but that's where we're at.
It's a young man's game. It's a young man's game, and like we discussed earlier, especially at the lighter weight classes, 155 being at the very edge of that limit. Past 35, there's not going to be a lot of success for you there, and BJ Penn is way past that. And judging by what we have discussed previously on the show with his family and potentially substance abuse issues, I don't expect a lot from him, and expect him to just put out a very shitty performance and lose to Clay Guida.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. You want to do which one you want to go to?
So we're gonna skip from the prelims because that was a prelim fight actually, and essentially half of this main card is not great. Again, another telltale sign that the UFC has given up, given a fuck, and is willing to just give ESPN Plus some bullshit because they've already got the money in the bag. So, in the featured bout, we've actually got a legend of the sport, Jose Aldo versus Alexander Volkanovski. What do you think, Franz?
I'm gonna go with Jose Aldo. I don't know the other guy too well at all, pretty much. So that's why I'm going with Jose Aldo. I think that again, another guy that just isn't what he used to be, but if he utilizes those leg kicks like he used to, man, he can do some real damage. But I'm going with him. I'm going to go with him and say, I'm going to say decision. I really don't have high hopes of him knocking anybody out.
Even though he's got a TKO two times in a row. He's coming off of 2 straight TKOs.
Okay, I'm still going to go with decision though.
All right, gotcha. So I believe that Jose Aldo's decline is much exaggerated. Jose Aldo is still around, and let's not act like he's a bum. He lost to Max Holloway, and he lost to Conor McGregor. I'm not saying that you're saying he's a bum. I would never accuse you of such treachery, but there's many fans out there who really seem they're either casuals or just must have forgot that Jose Aldo is one of the greatest of all time. And Alexander Volkanovski is a great wrestler, and Jose Aldo has proven that he can combat wrestling defensively amazingly against Chad Mendes, did it twice. So I expect Jose Aldo, especially given that this is a 3-round fight, I expect Jose Aldo to finish this guy within the first round. If anything, maybe second round. Jose Aldo's going to get a finish by TKO. And Jose Aldo wants to retire after finishing his UFC contract. This is the last fight. This is the second to last fight on his contract. So he wants a title fight after this. He's going to TKO this guy, and he's going to fight Max. I don't think he can beat Max. Hopefully Max vacates the belt and he can fight like Brian Ortega in like a vacant championship title fight type of thing.
Why do you hope that so much? You just want
because I just like Jose Aldo, and I think he's a legend of the sport, and I would love for him to ride out into the sunset as a champion because, you know, this is the fight game and it always ends ugly. Like your heroes, you always see them knocked out, looking into the lights, wondering what just happened.
Yeah, like,
and I don't want that to be Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just rooting for that. So I'm going to Jose Aldo by finish.
Okay, TKO for you. All right, decision for me there.
Looking forward to another hero of the sport facing a dangerous up-and-comer. So we got Anderson, the Spider Silva, the greatest middleweight to ever do it, versus Jared Cannonier.
Yeah, Cannonier, I think he TKO'd David Branch in his last fight. I'm going to go with Cannonier. I'm going to go with Cannonier by I'm going to go with the TKO here. Third round.
Third round? Okay, so I'm going to take Anderson Silva by a very boring decision. And Anderson Silva, I'm not ready to close the book on him because, like, when I see him fight, even though he should be like done, like he's not getting he's not getting blown out. You know, when he loses, it's not like it's like, oh my God, he doesn't belong in there. You know, that has not happened. You know, his last few losses, it was he lost to Bisping in a fight where he knocked Bisping out cold, but they determined that it was not within the time of the fight because he did it a little bit after the bell. So, you know, they allowed the fight to continue. And then he lost to Derek Brunson he beat Derek Brunson in a boring decision. And then he lost to Israel Adesanya in a boring decision. He's not getting the crap beaten out of him. And I don't expect it to happen here again. So I'm going to take Anderson Silva by a very boring decision.
That fight between him and Adesanya was nothing more than like a sparring match.
It was sparring. It was sparring.
It looked terrible, man. That was such a boring fight. All right, man.
He's not getting the crap beaten out of him. So
yeah. Now I'm going with TKO for Cannonier, man.
All right, so let's hit the main event and bring this motherfucker home. So we've got Rose Namajunas, the champion at 115 pounds, the deepest division in women's MMA, versus the number one contender, Jessica Andrade. Bate estaca. That means pile driver, just so you know. What do you got, Fonz?
Of course, I'm picking my girl, Rose Namajunas, man. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think that her going into enemy territory, so to speak, being the champ and having to go to enemy soil is crazy for most fighters. But if there's one fighter I think that can do it and not hear all the noise, it's her. When she gets in there, she's a stone cold killer, man. I love the way she goes in, stone faced, shaved head and all. She's just all about that fighting life. I'm going with her, and I'm going to go with her big. I'm going to say she submits Jessica in the second round, and that's bold.
I like that pick. I like that pick a lot. And you know what? I think that's a very plausible pick. I think that's a very likely outcome because I think Jessica Andrade will hunt for the takedown, and I think it will prove to be a mistake because I think Rose Namajunas, even though Jessica Andrade has incredible jiu-jitsu and especially is strong physically, very strong physically, I think much stronger than Rose, the strength won't be able to defeat the proficiency in technique. And I've got Rose Namajunas being able to ward off being finished by Jessica on the ground and on the feet, and being able to outclass her on the ground and on the feet. And I think she's going to win a very exciting decision unanimously against Jessica Andrade.
Nice. Okay, so you're going decision win for Rose. I'm going second round submission. I think it'll be maybe a triangle, something on the ground. Maybe she'll be on her back and just pull it off, and it'll be a thing of beauty. That's what I'm hoping for.
Rose is a killer, and I believe in her wholeheartedly.
All right, so that's it for episode 6. Meds, why don't you go ahead and close out the show here?
Fantastic, awesome. Before we close out the show, I do want to bring attention to at least one thing before we close out of here.
Okay.
There was a one-night tournament in MMA this week, which should not go unnoticed. A one-night tournament has not been done since the early UFC days. Actually, no, it may have happened in Pride, actually. But it's been a long time, either way. And it happened in Invicta Fighting Championships, and it was used to crown a new 115 champion over there. And there's a young lady named Brianna Van Buren, who I actually did pick to win the tournament.
Nice.
And she put on so many amazing performances. She beat her first opponent and just looks so confident in there. And in the post fight after that, said straight up like, "Yo, this is only the first thing. We got so much work to do. Tune in because I'm gonna beat all these other girls later this tonight." And this girl racked up 3 wins in one night and became the new Invicta strawweight queen. And I want to shout out to her, Brianna Van Buren. She's got a bright future in MMA, and look out for her. I think she's going to be joining the UFC very soon and make some noise. So
nice. I was just going to ask you that. That's good.
Yeah. She looks incredible. And there was some UFC veterans in that tournament pool, and she showed out. And she's a talent to look out for. Definitely look out for her. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody for showing out and supporting Fight Culture MMA podcast this week. Last week, honestly, it was a late show. I was tired. I thought I sucked last week. I think I made up for it this week. So I apologize to the fans out there. I hope you guys can forgive me and tune in next week. So thanks for coming out, and definitely make sure to follow us at Fight Culture Pod on Twitter. Follow me at @TheRealMeds_. Follow Jay Fonzarelli over at Jay Fonzarelli on Twitter, and also on YouTube, making amazing videos over there on the gaming space, and also on the RDX podcast. You can catch him on YouTube. Call up the show. You already know the number is 1747. Fight me. call up, leave a question, leave a comment. We'll read it on the air. Leave us a question on my Twitter account, on the Fight Culture Twitter account, Jay Fonzarelli. We'll definitely answer your questions on air. And thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week. We'll catch you next time on Fight Culture.
Nice. See you later, guys.